nearby tree, safely out of range. So naturally, they chalked it up to a loss and they went about their day. Or they would have if they weren't from Virginia. The men tried to prod the bear out of the tree, but they failed. And as they retreated, one of the men aimed his gun and proceeded to shoot the bear right out of the tree. His bullet hit the target, and the bear tumbled down onto the ground right on top of the unfortunate Lester. Bears are pretty big animals, so this was a critical blow. And despite frantic first aid attempts, Lester died of his injuries at a nearby hospital. Of course, he wasn't the only death related to this incident. That bear is no doubt still being toasted at the local honeypots. And not even prominent citizens are safe from embarrassing ends. Number 25. Johnny Turner was an American attorney who assembled quite the career over his almost 77 years of life, serving as an Army medic and operating a successful private practice. He even tried to kickstart a political career, serving in the Kentucky House of Representatives in the late 90s. Everyone likes a comeback story, and Turner was re-elected to the Kentucky Senate in November 2021. It was a big victory for him, but the Kentucky power broker wouldn't even see the end of his first term in office. And it wouldn't be the voters that did him in either. Turner was riding a lawnmower at his home in Harlan when he took a wrong turn and proceeded to drive it directly into the swimming pool. This would have been an embarrassing incident, except that the pool was empty at the time, so instead of a wet pair of clothes and a ruined mower, Turner suffered fatal injuries. He was eulogized by local politicians, including national figures like Senator Mitch McConnell, as a dedicated public servant. However, no one had anything to say about his driving skills. And for these Indian tech powerhouses, they flew a little too close to the sun. Number 24. Sanjay Shah had made it big. His tech company Vistex was based in Illinois and was gaining popularity across the ocean. Now he and his company president, Raju Datla, were in Hyderabad to celebrate their company's success in front of hundreds of guests and employees. And they wanted to make an entrance in a big way. Shah and Datla were set to make a dramatic entrance, being lowered onto the main stage in an iron cage descending from a specially built wooden platform. It was going to be spectacular. They would appear as if sent from the heavens, ready to dazzle the crowd. And then things went horribly wrong. As the gentle descent began, a chain broke. The metal cage fell 15 feet to the stage below in front of horrified onlookers. Shah died at the hospital from injuries to his leg and hand, while Dadla suffered a critical head injury that left him in a coma. He died several months later. Both men were eulogized as pillars of the Indian tech scene and praised as good bosses, but it was no doubt a warning to future tech executives to keep a hands-on approach, but maybe don't do your own stunts. This next victim is the definition of too much of a good thing. Number 23. The small town of Romano di Lombardia was known for its beautiful landscapes and its bountiful cheeses. Like its namesake, it did a brisk business in selling massive wheels of Grana Padano cheese, a Parmesan-style cheese known for its hard rind. These cheeses need to ripen in storage for a long time, and someone has to check on them. And one day in 2023, that job fell to Giacomo Ciapparini, a 74-year-old cheese expert who was responsible for inspecting the cheese. Lots and lots of cheese. And those cheeses weighed a lot. He worked in a warehouse that stored upwards of 15,000 wheels of cheese on an intricate collection of metal shelves that stood up to 32 feet high. As he was inspecting the shelves, one of them collapsed, creating a domino effect that sent hundreds of wheels tumbling down on the old man. When the authorities arrived, they had to bring in extra help just to move all the cheeses and shelves before finally discovering the unfortunate Mr. Ciapparini. The cheese inspector made a fate rarer than a perfectly aged Parmesan, death by Formaggio. Nature is brutal, and sometimes it's petty. Number
What? Are you ready to discover the secret to affordable premium smokes? Tired of spending an arm and a leg for government tax cigarettes? At Smoke Cargo, we've got your back. Get your favorite premium brands for as low as $5 a pack and $45 for a carton. And the best part? Pay no tax. But don't just take our word for it. With over 50,000 raving reviews from satisfied Canadians all across the country.
22. Head back to India, where elephants are a part of everyday life. The massive beasts are usually peaceful, but they can be startled, and when they are, they can cause a lot of damage. That's what happened to Maya Murmu, who was collecting water in a rural area of India. She had the misfortune of encountering a herd of elephants and attempted to flee, but one of the elephants ran toward her and trampled her. She was killed instantly, and her family transported her body back to home for burial. And that is where things get weird, because an elephant never forgets. As the funeral proceedings went on, a herd of elephants burst from the forest and they proceeded to charge toward the funeral. The villagers all fled, but they had to leave Murmu's body behind. One of the elephants proceeded to knock the body out of the casket and toss it into the air. Meanwhile, some of the elephants charged toward the dead woman's home and destroyed it, while the rest of the herd damaged other homes. Just a terrible coincidence, or did one of those elephants remember something about the unfortunate Miss Mermu? An animal also spelled the end for this next man, but not a living one. Number 21. Dinosaurs are definitely the most famous animals none of us have ever seen. People love them, and they play starring roles in movies, and in theme parks, and even in public art, like in Spain, where Barcelona plays host to a huge papier-mâché sculpture of a stegosaurus. People come regularly to the site to admire the dino and take pictures, at least until a man and his son noticed something was off about the statue one day. There was something inside of it, and what the police discovered was shocking. It was a body inside of the dinosaur's leg. How did the unfortunate man get there? Well, he certainly wasn't eaten by it. Stegosaurus are herbivores, and they're extinct. But they found a clue buried even deeper within the sculpture. It was the man's cell phone. Police believe he accidentally dropped his phone while trying to get a picture of the dinosaur and entered the statue head first and then fell. Unable to get any traction and climb out, he was trapped and is believed to have died soon after, before being undetected inside the structure for several days. For this lawman, the long arm of the law was no match for a bird. Number 20. It was 2020 in the Philippines, and Lieutenant Christian Bullock was on patrol. There had been reports of illegal cockfighting rings in the area. Not only was this animal cruelty, this was during the COVID-19 pandemic, when gathering to watch chickens kill each other was strictly prohibited. Bullock led his men to the site of the fight, breached the door, and found several men and chickens armed with gaffs, or sharp blades on their legs that the chickens used for fighting. Undeterred, he quickly grabbed one of the chickens, only to fall victim to the bird's deadly weapon. The gaff sliced into his femoral artery and he began bleeding profusely. While his men tried their best to stem the bleeding, he was dead on arrival at the nearby hospital. In the end, the other officer shut down the fighting ring, arrested 3 people, and confiscated their money. It was a victory for the fight against spreading the plague and animal cruelty, although it came at a high price. One that could have been avoided if Officer Bullock wasn't so determined to round up all the chickens. After all, they're not the ones being arrested. This next mother probably should have checked where she was sticking her head. Number 19. Raising kids is tough. When you have a baby or a toddler, countless things can go wrong at any moment, including some you probably don't think are possible. That was the case for Belarus mom Yulia Sharkov, who was celebrating her 21st birthday. She had just driven home and needed to get her 2-year-old daughter settled. She wanted to speed the process up, so rather than open the car door, she attempted to lift the little girl through the window, which was only half open. She just needed to reach in and get the little one out of her car seat, and that was when the girl accidentally hit the window button. Sharko's car had automatic windows, and there wasn't all that much room between the window and the roof when she stuck her head in. The window quickly rose, trapping the young mother's neck between the window and the frame, cutting off airflow to her brain. Her husband eventually found her, but by then she was unconscious and had suffered critical brain injuries. She never regained consciousness and died 8 days later in the hospital. If you think a kid can't reach something, they probably can. For this next guy, the sky was the limit, literally. Number 18, Julian Knott was the first name in ballooning. The British daredevil loved taking to the sky in hot air balloons and even developed balloons for space agencies to explore far-flung destinations like the moon of Titan. He was known for his record-setting achievements like crossing the Sahara in 1972 and the Alps only a year later. By his 70s, he had a whopping 96 British and 79 world ballooning records, and he wasn't done yet. In 2019, he was piloting an experimental pressurized high-altitude balloon in California. It was one of his most dangerous missions yet.
If every time you see an ad, you just wanna, you need to download it. It's a free Chrome extension that blocks ads on all your favorite sites. It even blocks ads that you didn't even know were ads. Imagine being able to scroll and stream completely uninterrupted. And that's not even the best part. If you opt in, Pi will give you cashback rewards for ads that you do see. And if you're still not convinced, just ask the thousands of users who love Pi. So if you're tired of constant ads, check out Pi today.
Yet, but it wasn't the flight that got him. He landed the flight successfully, his gondola coming to a rest near a hill. But before he could even unbuckle his harness, disaster struck. The gondola suddenly transformed into an unstoppable sled, rocketing down the rocky slope. What followed was a tragic crash landing. The elderly balloonist at 75 years old didn't stand a chance. But the many guests at his funeral, in between talking up his history-making accomplishments, no doubt noted the irony that in the end it was the ground that got him, not the sky. Knott chased death his whole life, but this man just wanted to relax. Number 17. It was one of the strangest mysteries to ever shake up the quiet Scottish Highlands town of Invergary. A bizarre death, a grand old-fashioned hotel, and a murder weapon no one saw coming. At the luxurious Glengarry Castle Hotel, American tourist Patrick McGuire was found dead, his body wedged tightly between a massive metal bench and the wall, causing him to asphyxiate. Who could have done this, and why would they choose to use a bench as a murder weapon? Well, it turns out the culprit was gravity. The unfortunate Mr. McGuire headed outside to take photos and have a cigarette break, and he never came back. An investigation showed that the ground under the bench was unstable, and the man sitting down caused it to tip over, resulting in a head injury and leaving him unable to struggle free before his oxygen was cut off. The hotel had previously been warned that the cast iron benches posed a safety risk, but they didn't remove them, resulting in a hefty fine to the hotel once the investigation was concluded. The culprit in this next mystery? Too much of a good thing. Number 16. When a 54-year-old construction worker passed away due to a heart ailment in 2019, it didn't look like a particularly suspicious death, but after the autopsy, his blood work showed something bizarre: an incredibly high level of glyceric acid. Not only is that a mouthful, but the chemical can lower potassium in the blood and reduce the level of electrolytes, which can alter the heart rhythm and make a cardiac event much more likely. The prime suspect was America's most hated candy. Black licorice is definitely the least favorite girl at the Halloween candy dance, but it's not just decisive, it has a high level of this acid, and the man had a licorice addiction. In fact, he had recently switched from red Twizzlers to traditional black licorice, which wouldn't be a problem if the man wasn't eating 2 bags of licorice a day for 3 weeks. This was a wildly atypical amount, and he became one of the only people ever to die of too much candy. Maybe Mom had a point. This next man lived the dream. Well, for a very short time. Number 15. Richard Russell was a 28-year-old worker at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, serving as a ground service agent. Depressed and not feeling like his life was going anywhere, Russell apparently admired the high-flying pilots who came in and out of the airport every day. He dreamed of being just like them, and one day in 2018 he decided to make it a reality. He snuck into the cockpit of an Alaskan Airlines branded Horizon Air Bombardier, and he took it to the skies. He was finally living the dream. There was just one problem. Richard Russell had never flown a plane before. Jets were scrambled to take down the plane in what was originally assumed to be a hijacking, but after making contact with Russell, it became clear he didn't want to hurt anyone. He soared over Seattle, skimming past Mount Rainier and the Olympic Mountains, marveling at the view that most only dream of. Over the radio, he chatted casually, bringing up an orca that had recently made headlines, as if he were on a joyride rather than a stolen flight. Then, in an audacious move, he proceeded to do a barrel roll in the air before crashing his plane on a lightly populated island. He was the only person killed. It was a bizarre series of events and as much of a failure on the part of airport security as the unhinged pilot himself. This was probably the most unusual case of death by...
C'est un scam, c'est une fraude, c'est pyramidal, name it, là, peu importe la raison que vous voulez trouver. Vous allez essayer d'en trouver une, vous allez dire, ça se peut pas. C'est impensable que quelqu'un réussisse à partir d'une job à 100 000 par année.
A dessert anyone had ever seen. Number 14. Because ice cream wasn't exciting enough anymore, one of the hottest desserts of number 14, and as much of a failure on the part of airport security as the unhinged pilot himself. This was probably the most unusual case of death by dessert anyone had ever seen. Number 14. Because ice cream wasn't exciting enough anymore, one of the hottest desserts of the early 2000s was Dippin' Dots. These tiny balls of ice cream were made with dry ice. They provided a unique sensation in the mouth and some powerfully concentrated flavors. But someone had to keep the machines running. In Seattle, one man took on the job, maintaining several at once, hauling them from place to place. It was routine work, until the day his wife borrowed the truck to drive the man's elderly mother home. The only problem was, maybe the maintenance wasn't up to scratch. The truck was packed with dry ice that was used to chill the ice cream, and it was leaking, with the vapors being packed with carbon dioxide. The car was flooded with a non-breathable gas, and it was later found at the side of the road with the 2 women unconscious. 77-year-old Hildegard Whiting was declared dead at the scene, and her daughter-in-law was taken to the hospital in critical condition. And all across the country, people reading the news went, maybe I'll stick with Rocky Road. This next man was tempting fate, but fate got him in a completely different way. Number 13. Peter Korkmaz wasn't a man who scared easily. He was one of few people willing to testify against Dutch criminal mastermind Willem Holleder, and he was seen as a key to bringing down the entire organization. Now this would normally get someone fitted for cement shoes, or cement clogs in this case, but Korkmaz was undeterred. He was out and about going fishing when his fishing line hooked into an electric pole instead of a fat bass, and it pierced the protective coating, sending an electric surge through the line and fatally shocking Korkmaz. The man was killed instantly, dealing a blow to the trial. Holleder issued a statement regretting the man's death and no doubt denying any involvement. This next man proved it doesn't take a lot to lose it all. Number 12. Let's head down to Brazil, where Rildo Mustache Santos was the kind of guy who knew how to have a good time. He'd been drinking heavily one night, but fortunately he didn't drive under the influence. Instead, he staggered back to the gas station where he worked as a cashier, and he came up with a bizarre idea to create a miniature ocean in the store. Rildo was a well-liked, eccentric man, and he no doubt thought that this would be a fun way to liven up the store for the customers the next day. Hey, it made sense when he was drunk. Unfortunately, it didn't get too far before things went haywire. When people came into the store the next day, they found Santos on the floor with his head inside a gallon of water. It took a while for the police to figure out exactly what went wrong, but the theory is that while he was assembling the pool filled with water, he simply slumped over. He fell face first into the water, and he was too drunk to get himself out. And so Mr. Santos became the one and only visitor to Playa del gas station. And sadly, he didn't get to bring any new guests to his institution unless you count the police and the medical examiners. In terms of unusual ways to drown, though, this woman might just take the cake. Number 11. Out looking forward to a vacation. She rented a villa in Western Wales where pool filled with water. He simply slumped over. He fell face first into the water, and he was too drunk. Company president Raju Datla were in Hyderabad to celebrate their company's success in front of hundreds of guests and employees, and they wanted to make an entrance in a big way. Shah and Datla were set to make a dramatic entrance. And he was seen as a key to bringing down the entire organization. Now this could normally get someone fitted for cement shoes, or cement clogs in this case, but Korkmaz was undeterred. He was out and about going fishing when his fishing line hooked into an electric pole instead of a fat bass, and it pierced the protective coatings, causing a...
Pila is a Canadian company. Almost all of our employees are Canadian. We even manufacture the vast majority of our phone cases right here.
massive heart attack, to which is a dangerous activity, but some catches are riskier than others. Number 8. Anyone who loves the sea knows that some of its creatures can be hazardous. After all, a stingray took out the beloved wildlife expert Steve Irwin, but that didn't stop Hawaii man Randy Lanes, who spotted a massive swordfish off the Big Island. He fired a spear at the massive sharp-billed fish, which fought inside completely naked. And even more bizarre, not chased death his whole life. Didn't look like a particularly suspicious death, but after the autopsy, his blood work showed something bizarre. An incredibly high level of glyceric acid. Not only is that a mouthful, but the chemical can lower potassium in the blood and reduce the level of electrolytes, which can alter the heart rhythm and make a cardiac event much more likely. The prime suspect was America's most hated. This next man was tempting fate, but fate got him in a completely different way. Number 13. Peter Korkmaz wasn't a man who scared easily. He was one of few people willing to testify against Dutch criminal mastermind Willem Holleder, and he was seen as a key to bringing down the entire organization. Now this could normally get someone fitted for cement shoes, or cement clogs in this case, but Korkmaz was undeterred. He was out and about going fishing when... In terms of unusual ways to drown, though, this woman might just take the cake. Number 11. Elizabeth Isherwood was a hard-working woman who worked as a care worker, and she was no doubt looking forward to a vacation. She rented a villa in Western Wales and then disappeared under mysterious circumstances. When the resort investigated, they ultimately cracked open a large cupboard, and they found Mrs. Isherwood inside completely naked. And even more bizarrely, the cupboard was filled with water. It looked like a case of foul play, but how would a murder like this even happen? Well, it turns out the truth is stranger than fiction. The unfortunate Miss Isherwood's death was a complete accident. It's believed that she had finished a shower, walked back into her room in the dark, and accidentally stepped into the airing cupboard. The door slammed shut and locked behind her. When she tried to claw her way out the back, she accidentally damaged a water pipe and caused water to flood the cupboard, soaking her and leading to her death from water back into her room in the dark. And it turns out the truth is inside hardworking woman who worked as a care worker, and she was no doubt looking forward to a vacation. She rented a villa in western Wales and then disappeared under mysterious circumstances. When the resort investigated, they ultimately cracked open a large cupboard, and they found Mrs. Isherwood inside completely naked. And even more bizarrely, the cupboard was filled with water. It looked like a case of foul play, but how would a murder like this even happen? Well, it turns out the truth is stranger than fiction. The unfortunate Miss Isherwood's death was a complete accident. It's believed that she had finished a shower, walked back into her room in the dark, and accidentally stepped into the airing cupboard. The door slammed shut and locked behind her. When she tried to claw her way out the back, she accidentally damaged a water pipe and caused water to flood the cupboard, soaking her and leading to her death from hypothermia. Was the villa a safety hazard? We're betting no one thought of an escape hatch in a cupboard. This next death went viral, and not just because its victim was a celebrity. Number 10. Rebecca Berger was rising fast, and the 33-year-old French fitness blogger had over 154,000 followers on Instagram in 2017. She was known for her recipes, her health advice, and her colorful personality. But that same year, she died under mysterious circumstances, at least at first. It turned out that the culprit was a common household appliance, one that had seriously injured people before: a whipped cream dispenser. These harmless-looking devices use gas capsules to siphon the cream. However, if there's too much pressure, the cap can explode, and it can become a powerful projectile. In the past, they've broken ribs and noses, causing hospital visits, but this time the cap was aimed directly for Rebecca Berger's chest, causing a massive heart attack, to which the company responded with, "Well, yeah, we know our whipped cream dispensers could hurt someone, but kill them? They say when you seek revenge, dig 2 graves." Literally in this case. Number 9. At the Luzerne County Correctional Facility in Pennsylvania, rookie corrections officer Christopher Moles was a well-regarded man, and inmate Timothy D. Gilliam was not. He was known as a troublemaker around the prison, and one day in 2016, he and Moles exchanged words by the 5th floor
Hey there, hope you're doing alright.
elevator. Gilliam proceeded to attack Moles, tackling the guard into the elevator door, and that's when things went very wrong. The elevator door, meant to hold steady, suddenly gave way. In an instant, Moles and Gilliam were left dangling over the gaping elevator shaft. Nothing but a sheer drop beneath them. A fellow guard fought desperately to pull them to safety, but it was too late. Both men plunged to the abyss. Moles was mourned as a hero who died in the line of duty, and Gilliam as someone who decided to pick a fight over a 50-foot drop. Fishing is a dangerous activity, but some catches are riskier than others. Number 8. Anyone who loves the sea knows that some of its creatures can be hazardous. After all, a stingray took out the beloved wildlife expert Steve Irwin. But that didn't stop Hawaii man Randy Lanes, who spotted a massive swordfish off the Big Island. He fired a spear at the massive sharp-billed fish, which fought back. Never a man to back down, Lanes jumped off the boat to wrangle it. The swordfish proceeded to stab Lanes in the chest, causing a fatal wound. Authorities mourned the beloved fishing boat captain, but warned that this was fairly predictable. After all, the pointy end of the swordfish is sharp enough that it sometimes even pierces fishing canoes. And not even the most powerful people in the world are safe, if people around them aren't careful. Number 7. Christopher de Margerie was a powerful French businessman, the chairman and the CEO of oil company Total SA. His desire to expand the company's holdings brought him to Moscow, where he hoped to cut a deal with the country's most powerful oligarchs and get the approval of its political power brokers. It seemed to be a successful meeting with Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev when he and several crew members boarded a small plane. But that plane would not get home. It wouldn't even leave the ground. As they were taking off, a snowplow broke through the protected area and slammed directly into the plane, causing a crash and killing everyone on board. French authorities opened their own investigation into the mysterious death, but most people believed the snowplow driver was simply drunk or driving irresponsibly. Still, in Russia, no one knows for sure. The country has a long history of people who aroused the ire of the government dying under mysterious circumstances. This next case showed that playground antics can go too far. Number 6. Most people have either gotten a wedgie or given one, or at least watched it on TV. The classic bullying technique sounds funny. It involves pulling the underwear so far up your back that it leaves it wedged up there. And of course, once you leave school, it's no longer a prank, it's called assault. And one man learned that the hard way. Bradley Davis found himself in a heated argument with his stepfather, Denver Lee St. Clair. After St. Clair made a comment about Davis's mother, furious, Davis decided to retaliate in the most bizarre way imaginable. He grabbed the older man's waistband and yanked hard, pulling his underwear up over his head in what can only be described as an atomic wedgie gone horribly wrong. It's the kind of move you would expect to see in a cartoon, but in reality it turned deadly. The force of the wedgie left ligature marks on Denver Lee St. Clair's neck along with blunt force trauma. Worse yet, it caused asphyxiation, leading to his death. Now that's certainly a costly price to pay for talking ill about someone's mom, and the authorities agreed. Davis was arrested, convicted of manslaughter, and sentenced to 30 years behind bars. Yet another reason not to do everything you see on TV. Safety first. But this woman took it way too far. Number 5. When pandemics hit, most people take extreme measures, even more than hoarding toilet paper. In Taiwan in 2004, the pandemic of the moment was SARS, a deadly respiratory virus. While most people were wearing masks and avoiding large groups, one woman had a different idea, soaking herself in a bath of ethanol for 12 hours. There was no evidence that bathing in this alcohol could deter disease, but she didn't die of SARS, that's for sure. The alcohol soaked through her skin, causing a fatal level.
Yeah, he's going crazy, jumping all over the place, but I won't let him outside, lol. Luigi was right.
Of intoxication, and she was found dead in the bathtub the next day. But at least she was spared the world's worst hangover. From here on out, it's all about the animals. Number 4. Swans are known for being one of the most aggressive birds out there, targeting humans who encroach on their territory, which made it all the odder that a man named Anthony Hensley worked for a company that used swans and dogs to chase geese away from local properties. One day he was kayaking in a pond near Chicago, wrangling up the swans, when one of them became enraged and swam at him. It quickly attacked the hapless man, knocking him out of his kayak and leaving him struggling in the water. And that is where things get weird. For one thing, Hensley didn't seem to be able to swim well.
Sorry for interrupting. Don't you hate when ads do that? Here's how to get rid of them.
It's called Pi, and if that sounds familiar to you, it's probably because you've seen their ads everywhere. It's available for free on the Chrome store right now, yet you're still watching this ad like an app.
And he wasn't wearing a life vest, an odd choice for a man who worked with water-based birds for a living. And what's more, the swan seemed to have a grudge against him because it kept coming back to attack him again and again, even as he was struggling in the water. Hensley became exhausted and was unable to stay afloat any longer. By the time rescuers reached him, it was too late. They pulled him from the water, but despite their best efforts, he was pronounced dead at the hospital. But even the smallest animals can claim lives under the right circumstances. Number 3. Captain Dan Salas wasn't just a deckhand. He was the star of the show. For years, the 54-year-old veteran fisherman entertained school children aboard a charter boat, turning routine cruises into unforgettable adventures. He was known for his wild antics, his larger-than-life personality, and his willingness to push the limits for a laugh. And on one fateful day in 2009, he took things a step further. He took a small bait fish and he popped it into his mouth, swallowing it whole. There was just one problem. It lodged in his throat and he was unable to dislodge it, leaving him struggling for breath in front of dozens of horrified children. He soon passed out and died, providing a valuable and horrifying lesson to all those kids on his boat. But no animal where it shouldn't be caused more damage than this one. Number 2. The year was 2010, and a mid-sized plane carrying 21 people was finishing its flight across the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Suddenly, it lost altitude and crashed to the ground, hitting a house about a half-mile away from the runway that it was aiming for. 19 of the 21 people on board were killed on the spot, while one of the survivors died at the hospital. There was only one person around to tell the story of what happened on the plane, and what they revealed turned this into one of the most bizarre plane crash stories in history. While initial investigations looked into the possibility of fuel exhaustion, it was determined that the plane had plenty left in the tank. The survivor later reported that one of the passengers had brought a duffel bag on board, and that contained a live crocodile. The reptile escaped during the flight, causing a panic, and sent all the passengers running toward the cockpit. This caused the weight in the plane to shift dramatically, altering its trajectory and sending it plummeting to the ground. Oh, and there was one more survivor. The crocodile reportedly crawled from the wreckage and disappeared into the wild. But in terms of shocking deaths caused by animals, nothing can top this one. Number 1. The year was 1988 in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and Kachi the poodle was about to meet a tragic end. The little dog was playing on the balcony of its home when it suddenly fell from the railing, plunging 13 floors to its death. But Kachi wasn't the only victim. It happened to land directly on the head of 75-year-old Marta Espina, who was walking along the street and was fatally hit by the fast-falling fuzzball. But the carnage caused by the pooch was just the beginning. As Edith Solo was attracted by the crowd rushing over to see the carnage, she was hit by a bus and killed. The carnage caused an older man to be overcome with stress, and he immediately had a fatal heart attack. And that probably makes Kachi the poodle with the highest kill count in the history of humanity. Some of these deaths are so absurd, they are hard to believe, but which one blew your mind the most? Or do you know of an even dumber way someone met their end? Tell us in the comments. Want to know more about some unusual deaths from the happiest place on Earth? Check out most horrific deaths at Disneyland or watch this video instead.
Oh, organic cotton sheets.
Organic? Are they gluten-free too? $40. See, I would have led with that.
Deal so good?
A streak of fire cuts across the sky, then seconds later, a devastating impact. A U.S.-owned cargo ship shudders as a missile tears into its hull. Alarms blare, crews scramble, and the U.S. Navy is nowhere to be seen. And this wasn't an attack from China. It wasn't from Russia either. It was a rebel force buried deep in Yemen that has somehow managed to drag the U.S. Navy into its longest sea battle since World War II. On today's episode of the Infographic Show, we'll show you how the Houthi rebels are taking on the U.S. Navy and surviving. You probably know all about one side of this conflict, the U.S. Navy. It is the biggest, baddest fleet to ever sail the seas, with over 4.5 million tons of sheer power. 11 aircraft carriers are already in service, with more on the way. There are 300 combat-ready vessels and over 4,000 operational aircraft in the skies. With over 667,000 active duty personnel and another 100,000 in reserve, it's a force built for global dominance, and it's been around for nearly 250 years, and it is still the gold standard of naval warfare. When the U.S. Navy shows up, it's usually game over. Usually, but not this time, because this time the U.S. Navy isn't up against a traditional Navy or a rival superpower. No fleets, no fighter squadrons, just a rebel group born in the mountains of northern Yemen, armed with old grievances, new weapons, and a whole lot of audacity. Meet the Houthis. They call themselves Ansar Allah, supporters of God, but most know them by the name of their founding tribe. They're Zaydi Shia Muslims from Yemen's Sa'ada province, a group that once ruled Yemen for 1,000 years. That is, until it was overthrown in 1962, and its power disappeared. But by the 1980s, the group had had enough. What began as a cultural revival turned into a political movement, and by the 2000s, that movement had guns. Fast forward to 2014, and the Houthis toppled Yemen's government and took control of the capital. Today, they don't just hold a few pockets of land in the country, they control 2/3 of Yemen's population and around 1/3 of the country's land. This includes key areas like the Red Sea coastline. However, these gains certainly came at a cost.
Getting your hands on the new Equinox EV is good. Getting your hands off the new Equinox EV, thanks to Super.
More than 150,000 people have died, and the violence has forced 4.8 million people from their homes. It's estimated that 19.5 million Yemenis, more than half the country, are now in dire need of aid. Amid all this destruction, the Houthis run a de facto government, one that collects taxes and even prints its own money. So while the Houthis may be the underdogs in the global sense, their grip on Yemen is anything but weak. They've allegedly got up to 200,000 fighters, a brutal ideology, and a rallying cry that tells you everything you need to know. God is great, death to America, death to Israel, a curse upon the Jews, victory to Islam. So why is it that the Houthis are fighting the U.S.? To make good on that death to America part? Well, not exactly. The roots of the current conflict actually do have to do with the other country getting an unfortunate shout out in the Houthis' rallying cry, Israel. You see, when the Israel-Hamas war erupted in October 2023, the Houthis wasted no time getting involved. In a bid to show support for Hamas and Palestinians, the Houthis started launching missiles and drones at Israel-linked targets, as well as U.S.-operated ships in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. By December 2024, the Houthis had attacked more than 60 ships. And these attacks weren't just an inconvenience. They sunk 2 vessels, hijacked a 3rd, and even killed 4 crew members. All of a sudden, the Red Sea, a critical shipping route, was under siege. But why the Red Sea? Well, Yemen's nearly 1,200 miles of coastline sits right along one of the world's most important waterways. Each year, trillions of dollars worth of global trade passes through the Red Sea and into the Suez Canal. And that is why when the Houthis began attacking commercial ships, it wasn't just a local issue, it disrupted the entire global economy. Commercial shipping activity in the Red Sea had dropped nearly 60%, a region that usually handles around 15% of global trade and 30% of global container traffic. Rates for container shipping between Europe and Asia jumped by as much as 173%, with the Dry World Container Index reporting a 115% increase on average. And that is why the US got involved. You can't have someone so brazenly jeopardizing global trade and threatening freedom of navigation without the world's strongest military stepping in to set things straight. But despite the sheer force and power, the US Navy quickly realized that the Houthis weren't their usual adversary. Instead of being wiped out in a few decisive strikes, the Houthis survived. And they have done it with relentless determination. On the 9th of January 2024, US ships, including the USS Laboon, had to shoot down 18 drones, 2 anti-ship missiles, and a ballistic missile, and that is just in one day. And this has been happening day after day for nearly 20 months, and that's with the US pouring millions into stopping them. Just 3 weeks of Operation Rough Rider, a large-scale campaign against the group launched in March 2025, cost the US $200 million. If the strikes continue at the same intensity, this figure could balloon to a jaw-dropping $1 billion. And yet, despite all of that firepower, the Houthis have refused to be wiped out. So let's take a closer look at how the Houthis have been targeting the US Navy and, against all odds, getting away with it. First up, missiles, ballistic, cruise, and everything in between. These aren't your typical backyard rockets. They are high-speed, high-tech projectiles that can cause untold destruction. The Houthis have managed to turn these missiles into an art form, attacking US naval vessels and commercial ships with alarming frequency, and not without success. Truthfully, the US Navy has had to deal with more than just a few close calls. But where are these missiles coming from? After all, we aren't talking about a country with a massive defense budget or a sprawling arms industry. The US is the one with the $849.8 billion defense budget, with $28.4 billion going to missile defense capabilities. The entirety of Yemen doesn't spend that much on defense. And the Houthis are just a part of that war-torn country, not even the whole show. Well, it's simple, really. The Houthis are financed by another country, one whose military budget is 200% higher than the year before, Iran. Iran has played a pivotal role in empowering the Houthis to resist and counter the might of the US and its allies. It was Iran's weapons transfers, training, and strategic advice that allowed the group to grow its military capabilities exponentially. Just look at the naval front. In 2015, the Houthis, with Iran's help, began developing anti-ship capabilities. Iran sent anti-ship missiles and helped the Houthis set up truck-based missile launchers, which could be hidden after firing. The country also provided intelligence through ships like the MV Savis, an Iranian vessel stationed off the coast of Eritrea. This made it possible for the Houthis to successfully target and damage enemy vessels and accurately fire at US targets. And we aren't just talking about the attacks in the 2020s. The Houthis began launching missiles at the US Navy destroyers and amphibious transport docks as soon as they gained control of their coastal areas, sometime around 2016. While these strikes didn't all result in direct hits, the growing frequency and sophistication of the missile launches posed a significant challenge. And this challenge only continued to grow. In 2024, the Houthis unveiled the Palestine II missile, which they claimed to have locally manufactured, though analysts say it closely resembles Iranian designs.
Are you ready to discover the secret to affordable premium smokes? Tired of spending an arm and a leg for government tax cigarettes? At Smoke Cargo, we've got your back. Get your favorite premium brands for as low as $5 a pack and $45 for a carton. And the best part? Pay no tax. But don't just take our word for it.
With a range of over 1,200 miles, it can reach targets as far as Israel. This clearly shows how Iran's support has allowed the Houthis to project power well beyond Yemen's borders. But the Palestine II is far from the only missile the Houthis use in their daily attacks. It's also not the only one that's supposedly locally made in Yemen. Yet Iran somehow has its fingerprints all over the weapon. Take the Asef ballistic missile, for instance. The missile is a direct derivative of Iran's Fateh 313, and it has a reach of 280 miles. That's a serious range to close in on a target, and it's been used in multiple strikes. Then there's the Tankil ballistic missile, an anti-ship version of the Iranian Rad 500 missile. This one has a longer range of 310 miles, so if ships thought that they were safe out there in the Red Sea or the Gulf of Aden, think again. This missile brings the fight to the US Navy's doorstep. And let's not forget the smaller missiles in their arsenal, like the Falak, which have far less reach but are still enough to ruin your day if they hit the right spot. The Falak's range is about 87 miles, but that doesn't make it any less dangerous. If we look at the Houthis' arsenal of cruise missiles, things get even more interesting. The group possesses all kinds of cruise missiles, radar homing, infrared guided, and electro-optical. Their operational ranges go from 25 miles all the way up to 500 miles and then some. It's no wonder the Houthis have turned the Red Sea into their personal shooting range. However, what's more worrying is how fast the Houthis are improving their arsenal. Early on, the Houthis got their hands on Soviet-made P-21 and P-22s and Chinese C-801s, which have ranges of around 50 miles and 25 miles respectively. But since then, their inventory had
He's certainly special.
has improved, and they now deploy far more capable missiles. One of the latest additions is the Al-Mandab 2, a copy of Iran's Ghadir, which has a range of up to 186 miles and can really pack a punch. These missiles are just part of the group's growing arsenal, and it's clear that the Houthis have been getting better and better at using them. By 2025, they've turned missile warfare into a full-blown strategy, proving that even a relatively small group can make waves, literally. Based on this, you might be thinking that the US has a pretty solid grasp on what the Houthis are working with. But that's just the thing. Knowing what weapons your opponent might have in their arsenal is one thing. Knowing how they're putting them together and how many they actually have is something else entirely. And that is where the Houthis continue to keep the US guessing. Despite 20 months of attacks, the US still doesn't have a clear picture of the full scope of the Houthi arsenal. And it's not just about tracking what they possess, it's about how they're getting their hands on it and maintaining a steady flow of weapons. What makes this even more perplexing is in the Houthis' ability to innovate and adapt their weaponry. They are constantly iterating, assembling systems in what seems to defy expectations. And even when their creations fail, they learn and improve, a concept the military calls failing forward. This blend of resourcefulness and persistence is undoubtedly another reason why the Houthis have been able to resist the US Navy for so long. Beyond simply arming themselves, the Houthis have shown an extraordinary talent for turning limitations into strengths. They can turn to innovative tactics and resourceful repurposing of existing materials to create new threats.
Does Pila protect my phone as good as an OtterBox? I see this question in comments on everything that we do on social media, so let's just answer this.
For instance, once their missile systems were largely eliminated, they transformed smaller existing vessels into mighty weapons platforms, making the best of what they had. These improvised drone boats became a prime example of their ingenuity, making what was once a small patrol boat into a high-risk weapon of terror. Between November 2023 and July 2024, the Houthis launched a number of attacks using these unmanned surface vessels, or USVs for short, with great success. The attacks led to sinking of 2 vessels, the seizure of another, and the deaths of at least 3 seafarers. In some instances, the Houthis have outfitted these drone boats with decoys, dummies designed to resemble pirates. This psychological twist on their attacks doesn't just add to the chaos, it creates a level of uncertainty that makes it nearly impossible for targeted vessels to respond quickly or effectively. But the Houthis aren't just relying on confusion. Their attacks are also alarmingly precise. They have set up spotters at sea to guide the drone boats, tracking and remotely steering them right to their targets. The result is laser-accurate strikes that have raised serious concerns across the maritime community. But even if their ships aren't getting hit, their wallets certainly are. The Houthi attacks caused insurance premiums for vessels sailing through the Red Sea to skyrocket from 0.7% of the vessel's value to as much as 2%. But USVs weren't the only unmanned machines the Houthis have been using to give the US Navy a headache or two. There's also the other 3-letter troublemakers, UAVs, or unmanned aerial vehicles. Since 2016, the Houthis have steadily ramped up their drone game. The Kasef UAV, capable of carrying up to 66 pounds of explosives, became one of their primary tools. These drones are purpose-built for one thing: creating chaos. In February 2024, the MV Navis Fortuna, a US-owned bulk carrier, was struck by one of those Houthi drones. And while there were no injuries and the overall damage was minor, it was another sign that these drones were not to be underestimated, especially when the Houthis keep using and producing them. With assistance from Iran, the Houthis have established drone factories, improving their designs and capabilities over time. This allowed the group to develop an increasing variety of drones and loitering munitions. These efficient, low-cost, and highly effective weapons allow them to continue to challenge the U.S. naval forces. And this challenge is certainly costing the U.S. greatly. Ships like the USS Carney are firing SM-2 missiles, which cost around $2 million each, to defend against drones worth only $2,000, if that. That is a massive cost differential, 1,000 to 1. And let's not forget that the US Navy doesn't have an infinite supply of these advanced missiles, which can take years to build. But the Houthis rarely use just aerial drones, or just missiles. They like to go for the full package, mixing and matching their arsenal in complex, multi-layered attacks that keep the US Navy constantly on its toes. Drones buzz overhead, Missiles race toward a target, and then another surprise attack just when you think the coast is clear. That's exactly how the Houthis operate. They're using waves of strikes with different kinds of munitions, keeping their adversaries in a constant state of panic, forcing them to defend on multiple fronts. We've already mentioned the January 9th, 2024 assault with drones, cruise missiles, and anti-ship missiles. This was certainly not an isolated case. Even earlier, on October 19th, 2023, the USS Carney had to intercept 4 cruise missiles and 19 drones over a grueling 9-hour period. These were launched from Yemen, heading north along the Red Sea, potentially toward Israel. The Houthis' ability to launch such an array of attacks and sustain pressure over hours highlights their strategy. Keep hitting, keep tiring out the enemy, and always keep them guessing what's coming next. On September 27th, 2024, the Pentagon reported another complex attack involving cruise missiles and UAVs aimed at U.S. Navy warships in the Red Sea. Again, the Houthis launched their strike in waves, forcing the U.S. Navy to defend against multiple types of weapons simultaneously. It's like playing a game of whack-a-mole, except the moles are incessant missiles and drones, and the stakes are a whole lot higher. Of course, the Houthis are playing this game on easy mode thanks to their geopolitical advantage. Holding control of strategic coastal areas along the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait gives them a powerful vantage point over one of the world's most critical maritime choke points. This allows them to monitor and target vessels with impressive precision, making it increasingly difficult for the U.S. Navy to operate freely in the area. So, is that how the Houthis have managed to survive the wrath of the U.S. Navy? By knowing the turf, getting a big helping hand, and relying on creativity and innovation? Well, yes, but also that's not the whole story. You see, the U.S. Navy and the Houthis are playing entirely different games. For the U.S., it's all about presence. The U.S. Navy's strategy is based on the assumption,
okay, so pretend this is your car. Your insurance will pay for another one, right? Well, if you have a standard policy, maybe not so much. But it has
that a big show of force will make adversaries think twice. But for the Houthis, that's more like a challenge. They're not intimidated by the sight of U.S. warships, especially when they've already survived multiple rounds of U.S. airstrikes. In fact, they might actually welcome it. The Houthis have turned this into a kind of personal vendetta, a war of attrition they're determined to win no matter the cost. They're playing the long game with relentless attacks undeterred by the U.S. Navy's show of force. Plus, the U.S. Navy can't go all in because of Iran. The White House has long been tiptoeing around Iran, trying to keep tensions in check, especially with Iran enriching uranium up to 60% fissile purity and getting more involved in regional conflicts. Striking harder against the Houthis might provoke Iran, and that is something the U.S. has been very cautious about. The Houthis, on the other hand, have no such hesitation. To them, this isn't just a skirmish, it's an existential mission. They are deeply motivated by ideology. That whole death to America mantra isn't just a slogan for the Houthis. They see every attack as a step closer to their ultimate goal, and they relish the chance to go toe-to-toe with the world's most powerful military. But make no mistake, the U.S. is winning. While the Houthis certainly have put up a fight, sometimes catching the U.S. Navy off guard, the record in the Red Sea tells a different story. Time and time again, the list of incidents tends to start with U.S. Navy intercepted, or U.S. Navy shot down, and U.S. Navy destroyed. In other words, the Houthis might have made their mark, but the U.S. is still the one that gets the last word. Operation Rough Rider is going for a much broader set of targets in Yemen than ever before. It's targeting command centers, logistics hubs, and locations tied to senior Houthi drone experts. It's a reign of terror coming down from the skies. In March 2025 alone, the U.S. conducted a barrage of airstrikes in the Houthi-controlled parts of Yemen. April brought no signs of slowing down, with 25 airstrikes conducted by April 7th. It's clear the U.S. intends to make good on its promise to completely annihilate the Houthis. But this rebel force has shown resilience before. As CNN once put it, they have an extraordinarily high tolerance for pain. So the real question is, can they keep pushing back against a vastly superior military force? For the Houthis, this isn't just a strategic battle, it is a cause they're willing to fight for until the very end. Will the U.S. succeed, or will the Houthis be able to adapt to this new level of sustained military pressure? Let us know what you think below. Now go check out how F-18 Super Hornets destroyed Houthis pirates, or click on this video instead. flanked on either side by two of Germany's main fighter aircraft, the single-engine Messerschmitt Bf-109 and the twin-engine Messerschmitt Bf-110. It's a formation that Germany used to great effect in mainland Europe and intends to do the same in taking Britain. The three planes fly confidently, knowing that the Royal Air Force, the RAF, has little in the way of planes that can properly counter them. Then the unthinkable happens. Halfway over the English Channel, the Heinkel HE-111 is suddenly blown out of the sky. They've never seen anything like this happen before. The pilots of the two German fighters frantically scan the horizon for whoever or whatever just destroyed the Heinkel, but they'll never find it. That's because the bomber was just taken out by an AIM-120 Advanced Medium-Range Air-to-Air Missile, or an AMRAAM. It has a 62-mile range and it's capable of moving at Mach 4, meaning the Heinkel was destroyed long before they'd ever be able to set eyes on whatever fired the missile. Before they have time to react, another missile streaks through the sky, then another, and both the German fighter planes are turned into burning husks, falling to the earth. Each pilot will never know that the missile that hit them was just one of 6 carried by a single F-22A Raptor, a 21st century marvel of technology and destructive power. But what would really happen if an F-22A Raptor suddenly went back in time and found itself on the front lines of the Second World War? Would it have been able to bring defeat to the German army years earlier than the Allies could using the technology of their day? Or would Hitler have found a way to counter this advanced tactical
Police rushed to the scene after this 911 call, only to make a horrifying discovery.
On the right side of her head, kind of below the ear, poundage really clean.
The crime scene was heartbreaking, and all that was left was a
just went upstairs and started cleaning up. Went to the bathroom, came back out, and she had the gun playing with it. And had it to her head.
Oh, so she was playing?
Yeah, playing with the gun. I didn't think that it was gonna go off or that she was serious or nothing like that.
What was she saying when she was playing with it?
Nothing. I was just like, stop. She was like, no, no, no. And when I started walking towards her, she moved to the highway and put it by her head.
Okay.
When I went to grab it, it went off.
I know you're emotional. You're upset. And that's fine. That's normal. When did she get this gun?
I don't know. I just found out today. When she pulled it out and had it.
Did she say anything about wanting to shoot herself?
She had said that in the past, but I didn't think it seriously or nothing like that.
Why do you think she did this?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I just don't know why she would play around with a gun like that. That's weird to me. It doesn't really add up with the girl that everybody's told me she is.
He looked devastated by grief, but the detectives were eager to get to the bottom of it.
After the gun goes off, what happens to her? What does she do?
She falls downstairs.
And what do you do?
I start trying to shake her and wake her up. She wouldn't wake up. I tried to call the 911 and it wouldn't go through. So I called my brother, then I called 911 again, and they answered.
Who's your brother?
Terry Willis.
Jermico made a suspicious remark, which left the detectives unsure whether he was a witness or a suspect in this case.
Do you have your cell phone with you?
No, I don't.
But you had it then when you called?
Yeah.
If it's not in the apartment, where else would it be?
I can't tell you. I just know I didn't have my phone.
Did you give it to your brother by chance?
Mm-mm.
Did you mess with the gun after the shooting?
No.
Okay, so you didn't pick it up and mess with it or anything?
I grabbed it, moved it, threw it out the way.
Meanwhile, Jermico's brother, Terry Willis, was brought in for questioning regarding his involvement in the incident.
I got a phone call and he's screaming and crying and saying that his girlfriend killed herself. And I said, what? And then I was like, man, I'm on my way. So I told my wife.
So do you guys go together?
Yeah, we went together.
In what car?
In her car. A Silver Lexus.
When you get there, what happens?
I jumped out the car and my wife jumped out. And when I went in there, he was on top of him crying. And I grabbed him and I was like, man, come on, man. And he was like, nah, man. Why she do that?
Did you see the gun, or?
The gun was right here by her hand. And when I picked him up, I kind of ticked it over a little bit so nobody wouldn't get hurt. And pulled him up off of it, took him out outside.
Alright, anything else?
Nah, that's it, man.
Something felt off to the detectives. Jermico's failure to hand over his phone, along with his claim that he'd never seen the gun before, sparked concern. These alarming red flags pushed investigators to dig deeper, leading them to reconsider everyone close to the case. This time, the detectives shifted their focus to Terry's wife. They approached her directly and requested permission to search her car. However, her reaction triggered the detectives' concern, suggesting there was more to the story than she was willing to reveal.
When we leave here, can you give them access to the Lexus? Do you have the keys to it?
Do I have to do that?
Well, what we want to do is make sure that he did not put the phone in there. Is the cell phone in there?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Then what I would like for you to do is give me the keys so when we tow it, we don't break up your transmission.
Okay, but it's not my name.
Doesn't matter whose name it's in. You can give me permission to look in that car for the cell phone.
I
Terry's wife refused to grant access to her car, further deepening uncertainty about her involvement in the case. Detectives found it increasingly difficult to believe any of the three individuals' claims. Determined to overcome the lies, they confronted Jermico again, but this time with the hardest question yet.
This is Detective Kennedy. Just got a few questions.
Now, I've been listening to this a little bit. What I don't believe is it's her gun. Okay? Where would she get a gun?
I don't know. Ain't real.
No, it's not real. It's kind of bizarre, to be quite honest with you. A young girl that's never owned a gun before, had a gun before, that you know of, that we know of. And all of a sudden a gun shows up. I want to be honest with you. I don't think she brought that gun. I think you did.
I'm just ready to go.
No, I understand what you're ready to do. This is going to ask you a hard question. Did you shoot her intentionally?
Jermico's statement left detectives puzzled, making them question their sanity. He was confident, insisting he had no involvement in the case, yet his words felt inconsistent. Unconvinced, detectives decided to dig deeper by running a background check on him for any criminal history. What they found wasn't just suspicious, it was unsettling.
It appears that he's been arrested and convicted of aggravated assault battery, burglary, and possession of firearm. It appears that Jermico has threatened multiple girlfriends and used violence on some of these girls. This one report right here is pretty disturbing. It says that Jermico took a knife and tried to cut one of these girls. Another girl kicked her in the head, punched her in the face.
After this, the detectives became certain about Jermico's involvement in the case. His clothes were taken for forensic testing to eliminate any possibility of foul play.
You might have to wait home.
Yeah, you're not going home, you're going to jail.
What am I going to jail for?
For being there with the gun at the house. You're not supposed to. You're on federal paper. Well, you're getting ready to go now.
Getting your hands on the new Equinox EV is good. Getting your hands off the new Equinox EV, thanks to Super Cruise, that's better. OnStar. Better never stops.
Jermico was arrested on March 19, 2018 for the possession of firearms. Detectives were eager to search his phone after his arrest, hoping it would reveal the truth, but before they could get to it, there was one crucial lead they had to chase.
I want to follow up with the neighbor who heard noises before this happened. Maybe she remembers more now that she's had time to think about it.
The next day, detectives called the neighbor who had heard suspicious noises from Aisha's apartment. She shared information that could bring some light into the case.
Ma'am, I really appreciate your help. She says that she hears around 3, somebody was falling down some stairs. She says at least 20, if not 30 minutes later, police still were not there. So it's quite a while. She says she looks out the window and sees at least one black male, maybe 2. She said then, minutes later, police arrive. So he didn't call 911 immediately. He waited and called probably his brother before calling for help.
Which is not something that somebody does when their girlfriend kills themselves.
This delay was a red flag in itself that warranted further investigation. With these doubts in mind, the detectives proceeded to Aisha's apartment. They interviewed several neighbors and carefully reviewed any available surveillance footage to piece together what had really happened outside that day.
Detective Calhoun, work for the Tulsa Police. Hey, were you outside yesterday when all the police were out here?
All I know was for 1 month now, the police have been coming pretty hard, and yesterday was the more severe.
Really? They come to the same apartment?
Yeah.
Okay, did you hear any gunshots?
No.
Hear any noise or anything?
No.
The fact that police had visited the house multiple times only made it more evident that something wasn't right. Meanwhile, the other detective had no luck with the surveillance cameras, and there was no footage to review. With each dead end, the case grew more unsettling, as if the truth was just out of reach. However, they had something, the autopsy report. It could finally give them answers, or point them toward the right questions to ask this time. When the results came in, they revealed interesting details that didn't just stand out, but confirmed the detective's suspicions.
This is the entrance wound. There's no stippling at all around it. There's no soot around the wound or anything.
With the stippling, what we normally see right here?
If it was a contact wound back here, I would expect to see some tearing or some soot around the wound. There's nothing there. And that's telling me this is going to be a distance shot, 30 inches or greater.
Well, that's interesting because that sounds like it's impossible for her to hold the gun out and shoot herself. I think he shot her.
The bullet entering from 3 feet away ruled out the possibility of self-infliction. With this crucial detail, detectives had enough probable cause to charge Jericho with first-degree murder. However, their investigation was far from over. There were still more gaps to fill.
We don't want this case to rest solely on ballistic evidence, so we need to get Jamaica's phone to look in there. In addition to that, we need to interview some ex-girlfriends. We want to be able to show a pattern of violent behavior.
Finding answers in this case became more critical than ever. 2 days later, detectives searched the vehicle that Jermico's brother Terry and his sister-in-law had used. They suspected that Jermico had handed his phone to his brother and that Terry had stashed it in the car, possibly hiding crucial evidence.
It's a silver Lexus. Yeah, that's it. I appreciate you guys coming down here to do this. All right, let's start the search.
Can't see much back here.
He's got mail in this car, so when he says, "Oh, that's not my car. I don't do anything."
It's obvious. One of these cars is not like the others. It's not your everyday car, so don't pay more for everyday insurance. Pay a better price for better coverage from
hanging it. Here's proof.
Jermico's phone had been there all along, tucked away in the car, just as detectives had suspected. With it finally in their hands, they knew this could be the key to getting to the truth. Then, 1 week later, the cybercrime unit got to work. When they finally cracked it open, what they found inside wasn't just evidence. It had the power to turn the entire case on its head.
There's like 3,000 or 4,000 photos.
That's a pistol? Oh, dude. That's probably the gun.
What made the photo of the gun so suspicious was the timeline. It had been taken just 2 weeks before Aisha was killed. That wasn't just a coincidence. It was an essential piece of the puzzle. With this breakthrough, detectives looked deeper into Jermico's call logs. What they found made his web of lies even clearer.
What is this? March 17th. That's his brother's phone number. There's several outgoing calls. Look at that. He said he called 911 first, but that's a lie.
With all of his lies catching up to him, Jermico had no idea the cops had already found a crucial piece of evidence. His secret wasn't safe anymore. It was about to explode into the open. He didn't just call his brother once. He called him 5 times before dialing 911. Reaching out to Terry so many times made it seem like his brother wasn't just a bystander, but possibly part of something bigger. However, before looking into that lead, detectives decided to focus on Jermico's ex-girlfriends, women who all had a history of abuse at his hands.
I don't know what Terry's role was in this incident right now, but I do know a little bit about Jermico's history with ex-girlfriends. Some of the allegations are just horrendous. Now, it's possible that he just went too far, that maybe he shot her. Maybe he was calling his brother to seek some advice or ask for help to clean up the scene.
A month after Aisha's death, detectives brought in one of Jermico's ex-girlfriends for questioning, hoping she could provide something valuable to the case. However, they weren't prepared for the revelations she was about to share.
I appreciate you coming down here. Did anybody force you to come down here to talk to me or anything like that?
No, actually, I've been told not to talk to you.
Okay, who told you that?
Terry has been sending messages to people.
So you said someone reached out to you?
Yeah, Terry's ex-girlfriend. She sends me a message that says, call me ASAP. So I call her. And she said, well, Terry asked me to tell you when you need to talk to the detectives, don't say anything bad, just speak highly of him.
This was shocking, to say the least. Terry was allegedly working to protect Jermico. However, detectives still pressed on, determined to understand more.
I'm investigating Aisha's death, okay? And as you know, Jermico Willis has been arrested for it. Your name came up as someone who used to date him. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
In the beginning of the relationship, Jermico was okay. It was sweet. It was loving. And the first time he hit me, it was at the club. He said I was eyeballing another dude, but I got knocked out.
Like he punched you in the face and knocked you unconscious?
I call it boot camp, but I was in a relationship. It was boot camp, and he's the sergeant. So when I did see the news, that she, in a way, she committed suicide. She probably stood up for herself, and he shot her, and I bet the first person he called was Terry.
When she said this, detectives were stunned. She'd mentioned Terry without them ever mentioning his name. It was becoming clear that they were on the right track. The pieces were finally coming together.
Have you heard that, or is that just kind of your gut instinct?
That's my instinct.
Okay.
Because when he would beat me to where I was barely breathing, that's the person he would call was Terry. And I know with me talking to y'all right now, I could very much possibly end up like Aisha, because the main person that teaches Jermico everything is still out here. Terry.
First, let me say this. I understand just talking to you that you're scared of his brother. I'm looking at his brother too. But if his brother's going to go around and continue to do this, I'm going to lock his brother up.
I don't know. It seems like Terry, he gets what he wants.
What I need is good, strong people like you who would be willing to help us if we need it, okay? This may be the opportunity where you can stand up. And you can show him that you're not afraid of him.
I want to help. I do. I'm going to help.
The ex-girlfriend wanted to help, but the trauma of Jermico's abuse still stayed, haunting her with every word she spoke.
When I looked at Aisha in that basket, it was like looking at myself. And I wish I could have been strong enough to stand up to him. I mean, because it's 3 babies now without a mother.
Detectives saw her as a crucial witness, someone who could finally solidify their case against him. A month later, Jermico was taken to court with 2 key witnesses. One was his ex-girlfriend, and another one of his ex-girlfriends was prepared to testify. But in a shocking turn, a woman approached them before court, threatening one of them to stay silent. Police saw this as a clear attempt to weaken the case and immediately tracked her down. She was identified as Deleuze Roan, who was quickly arrested before she could silence more voices.
They stopped her out in East Tulsa. My game plan is to talk to her and see if she'll admit to this intimidating of witnesses. I'm gonna take those handcuffs off you. You got a warrant. Looks like you're gonna be spending some time in jail.
What?
Yes, ma'am. You have a warrant here for intimidating a state's witness.
Roan looked genuinely terrified, but whether it was genuine fear or just an act was still unclear.
I understand that. That's why it's important you tell the truth and you need to do the right thing. And if you care about your babies, you need to stop trying to help Jermico.
I'm not trying to help him. I don't want to be involved in this.
You are involved. Listen to me. You're wrapped up in this now. That day at the courthouse, you show up. There's an exchange of words between you and these other girls, right?
Why is it allowed to talk to Terry? I want you to say hello to Terry.
You got to understand, these other girls are scared to death of Terry. And when you walk up in the victim witness center and you say, oh, Terry says hello, these girls think Terry's going to kill them. You talked to him. What did he say?
He said if them bitches come up there, let me know. He said I want them followed.
Okay, who was going to follow them?
I don't know. First he wanted me to do it, but I told him I'm not doing that. And Terry wanted me to meet him.
The detective was suspicious from the start. She seemed to be hiding more than she revealed. However, Rome did admit that after leaving the courthouse, she went to Terry's apartment to meet him. What she said after would be the missing piece detectives had been searching for.
I need to know the truth.
He told me what happened.
Told you what happened? What do you mean? What did he tell you?
He told me what happened that day. He said his phone started ringing, and it was Jermico. And Jermico said Aisha killed herself. He said that when he got to the scene, Aisha was laying on the ground. And he said that he knew when he seen the body position that Jermico killed her. There was a gun right there. And he said it didn't make sense to me.
All right.
So he said he kicked the gun. And he said that way you guys wouldn't like Jermico positioned it.
So you say he kicked it intentionally so that to kind of throw us off?
He's like, I don't know what's wrong with my brother. He said he felt like they were arguing and that he just got mad and shot her. But he told me about the Aisha thing. He said, I can't tell you what to do, but don't go against my brother. So I'm warning you now.
Hearing this, the detective knew Terry had to be arrested too.
So if I'm going to go find Terry, aside from that apartment, can you think of any other place I need to look?
No.
The hidden phone, the calls before 911,
It's gummy hunting season
and now
out there.
multiple witnesses pointing to his involvement in Aisha's murder. There was no way they could let this slide.
We've got a warrant on him for intimidating a witness. And now we're going to do an add-on for accessory to murder. My plan is to get some people in that apartment where we think he's at. We got to get him today, dude.
Detectives hoped that reaching Terry and uncovering the truth would be the final piece of the puzzle. But first, they had to find him, and time was slipping away. At last, just hours later, detectives tracked down Terry Willis and brought him in for a serious interrogation.
I guess Officer Anthony, you wanted to talk to a detective, you said, yeah, is that right or no?
Yeah, what is it about?
That's your warrant. The district attorney filed charges on you for intimidating a state's witness. There's evidence that you were trying to figure out addresses for two girls, okay? And that's
Yes, and it's controlled with another sex toy.
Were you guys trying to talk to Matt to testify?
No, not at all.
Because that's not how it looks on paper. I'm just telling you, okay? That's not how it looks.
I understand that, but that's not what it was.
All right. Well, I mean, that's something you're gonna have to explain in court, okay? Let me ask you this, man to man. When this thing happened that day with Jermico, you went over to the apartment. When your brother tells you, hey man, she shot herself, and then you see that gun there, do you think anything's fishy about that?
I didn't think nothing of it. I was just tripping out because I'm looking at this dead body.
Are you ready to discover the secret to affordable premium smokes? Tired of spending an arm and a leg for government tax cigarettes? At Smoke Cargo, we've got your back. Get your favorite premium brands for as low as $5 a pack and $45 for a carton. And the best part? Pay no tax.
Yeah, I'm spokesperson for the
But don't
company. I
just
think
take
they
our
only
word
sold 3 of them.
With over 50,000 raving.
So when I get my
Once
toy,
again,
I'm going to
Terry
be making
repeated his
content.
version of events, like the detective had a card up his sleeve that could change everything.
I need to figure out how to make it work in Second Life or something. VR chat.
That you made a statement that you didn't think that
chat.
Would that be a lie?
Yeah, it's a lie.
Okay. What if I told you there was information that you deliberately moved that gun because you thought the scene was staged?
Terry wasn't willing to answer many questions, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. In the end, he pleaded guilty to charges of witness intimidation and accessory to murder, receiving a 10-year sentence. Meanwhile, the charges against
I'll make you
Lesbro,
moderate my
accused
chat
of
so you
intimidating
can't jerk off.
witnesses,
You have
were
to be
later
banning the
dismissed.
creeps.
As for Jermichael Willis, he had originally faced a
And the
first-degree
bots.
murder charge, but in the end, he pleaded guilty to
You're supposed to be
second-degree
looking at the chat.
murder. On April 12, 2021, the court handed down his sentence. 20 years behind bars for the
Banning
murder,
bots.
plus 10 more for possessing a firearm. However, both sentences
Banning
were run at
bots
the same time,
and scammers.
sealing his fate for the next 2 decades. Though justice was served, nothing could ever bring Aisha Wallace back. Her story was a painful reminder of how the people closest to us can sometimes be the most dangerous.
This is a sad case.
No looking at the video.
Our victim here was doing everything right in life. She was raising her children when she was working.
It's right there next to the chat box. Don't look.
I hope that these arrests bring some closure to the victim's family.
Aisha's story was nothing short of heartbreaking, and no one felt the weight of her loss more than her father, who was devastated upon hearing the news.
I'm dead inside. I mean, a part of me died. When they told me she was dead, I felt my spirit leave me. I miss her smile and her laugh. My baby is my best friend. I keep hoping my phone's gonna ring and she's gonna say, Daddy, I'm on my way to come get my car. And
No, leave it.
Kids and we're going home. But I know that's never gonna happen.
Before we go, our deepest condolences to Aisha Wallace's family. Our thoughts are with them as they heal from this tragic loss. What do you think about this case? Do you believe Terry was just an accessory, or was his role in Aisha's murder more significant than we know? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Become a member today and unlock exclusive perks and interesting deep dives you won't find anywhere else. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Mysterious 7. Stay curious, stay cautious, and we'll see you in the next one.
I think it's a great idea. House sitters get somewhere to stay, and we, the house owners, get someone to look after our home and our animals.
I think it makes it a very equal relationship. They're both getting something, we're both getting something. I can't see any downside. It's mutually beneficial, everybody wins.
There's your problem. Did I close it too fast? guess so, because I don't have the keys yet. He belongs to the void. I got a similar one, but I haven't used it yet.
Fitch. I've located the body. The scene's about 50 yards on the trail.
This lone cop just discovered a dead body in the middle of the woods.
What is that? Ten 4 signal 7. Please send another unit to my location.
What he doesn't know yet is that the lifeless man in front of him has been tortured for hours by the twisted man hiding in this very forest.
Whoever did this, that's fresh. There's a little eyeball right here. That's some creepy shit right here. Smell this right. You don't smell gas right here? Yeah. Think they're gonna torch him? I'm not sure what it is, but I've got movement east of my location in the woods. There's something moving around back this way.
He carries 3 or 4 knives on him. He thinks he's Rambo.
You're what? I'm just like a god.
It's December 23rd, 2022, and Officer Azure has just received a 911 call from a distraught man reporting that he's found his best friend's lifeless body in the middle of the Lake Jackson forest. Officer Azure, along with a group of first responders, quickly arrive at the scene.
Okay, y'all stay right there.
Here they encounter Jamie, the 911 caller, and his best friend Robert, both of whom urgently want to show the officer where their dead friend is. Considering the serious circumstances, Officer Azure decides to follow Robert into the forest despite being alone.
389, I'm 1012 with him. Just give me a minute. I'm 1012 with you. I'm heading down to take a look. 361, if you want to come down in 56 with EMS in the back, I'm headed down to the scene. We're going to go back that way about 50 yards. Okay. My watch was good. Yeah. Knife was laying on the ground. There's no blood on it. Did you touch the knife? I did pick up the knife. Okay. Well, we're gonna need to get fingerprints from you. Okay. No problem. I walked by the tarp, and you couldn't see James. Okay. And then Alan walked by the tarp and goes, "What's that?" And he picked the tarp up with his stickies on his hand, and James was laying there face down, and I dropped the knife and we left. Okay. All right. So we're gonna need to get a very detailed statement from you, okay? Just because. I understand. Well, the thing is, I'm not accusing you of anything, but you have to be ruled out. You see what I'm saying? 100%.
At this point, the officer can't yet confirm Robert's story, but with a dead body reported, he has no choice but to push deeper into the woods. However, alone with a suspicious man he's just met and a killer who could be lurking nearby, the officer knows he must proceed with extreme caution.
You just hang on down right here for me, okay? Let me get up there and take a look. Which one? There. Right here for me. Oh, shit. Okay. And then you put in that back stand. All right. Where's the knife? Knife's on the left-hand side of him. Okay. Got a white belt. Okay. Just hang out there for me, okay?
Jamie was telling the truth. Wrapped inside the tarp is the body of James Leidendecker. He's lying naked in a pool of his own blood, covered in cuts and scrapes. Realizing the severity of the situation, Officer Azure immediately instructs Jamie to head back while he investigates further. That's when Officer Azure begins to hear some unsettling noises.
not sure if it's a person or I'm not sure what it is, but I've got movement east of my location in the woods. Sounds like it's heading this way. Hey, up T.
Fortunately for Officer Azure, backup arrived just in time, providing some relief from whatever might have been lurking in the forest.
I mean, there's nothing for y'all to check. He's cold to the touch. Alright, we got knife right here, body here, tents, whole camp spread up back here. We've also got one outstanding. There's 2 people who live in this camp.
And one's not here?
And one's outstanding at the moment.
Did you find the knife? Yeah.
I got a knife right here.
No blood on it, though.
Well, there's something right there, but hey, did you still got those 2 guys 10-12 up front?
Yeah, they're standing there waiting for us.
Good, because one that led me back touched the knife, so we need to get his prints and a statement off him. The other one touched the tarp. They found out what was going on and they took off. I checked the camp and he's the only one back here.
Well, I got the name of the person who was arguing with at 5 or 6 o'clock.
Yeah, so, and I've got what looks like maybe his clothes right over there. So, he's naked, and there's some clothes right there on the fire.
As medical staff arrives and examines the body more closely, they observe a brutal manner of death. Blunt force trauma to the head, strangulation, and something even more disturbing. Gasoline found in James's lungs and stomach. Detectives are left with a burning question. Why would a victim have gasoline inside him? However, this would be only one of the many disturbing details officers uncover at the scene.
Hey, Seth, take a look at this for me. What is that? Is that just soot weared off on that, or? I mean, it looks awful shiny.
Where he has been stabbed, from what I can see. But he is butt naked, face down on a tarp with his upper torso covered, so it's definitely not. It's definitely somebody put this in. So I don't know what his face looks like. If he was stabbed in the neck or the face, the blood may be hidden by the tarp. I'm not seeing any obvious blood. Apparently the witness picked up the knife, and the knife has like a rusty string around it. There's blood on it. Yeah, the tarp's brown, but there's blood all over the tarp, like blood splatter.
It looks like, I mean, he was moved post-mortem. You can tell by the way he was dragged.
Oh, he's got his fucking leaf in his ass, man.
Yeah. That's hollow down below, you see that? Yeah. That's crazy.
Almost looks like they're carving Odin. This in the one eye. You see that?
Fucking nuts. Artistic.
Smell gas.
Smell gas? I mean, I didn't cut that with a chainsaw, right? And it looks like.
You smell gas right
now. Yeah.
By now, officers were certain they had a murder on their hands. The injuries to the body, the bloody knife, and the presence of gasoline all point to one thing. This wasn't just a killing, but a calculated act where the victim had likely been tortured for hours. With this in mind, officers would return to question Jamie, the man who had originally called 911, and what Jamie reveals would soon lead investigators directly to the killer. But before we continue, it's worth noting that tragedies like these, provide them with their screen from your phone's camera. With that said, let's get back to the investigation. Officers were about to speak again with Jamie, one of the eyewitnesses, and he would provide them with their biggest lead yet.
So I heard arguing and stuff, so I go through the woods, go to this camp.
See you
I all back to the camp, because you know, all these people argue all the time about dumb shit. It's been a while now, and I haven't heard anything from James or anybody over there. So I go over there to me and my friend that's with Officer now. Go over there, right? So when I walk, get to a certain point, I see a tarp laying there beside this tree, which is never there. I
And
flip over,
inside
the
is-
tarp is, I don't even know if it's James or...
All right. Well, we're gonna get it figured out, okay? Do you know James' last name? Do you know James' last name?
No, ma'am.
No.
I'm talking about the person who did this. Because I know who it is. Dusty McDonald. It lives right up. He just got the complaint this morning. Man come down there with a hatchet, threatening, chopping shit up. Called it in, sheriff's department. They come over, they talked to him, they told him that they're gonna go over and talk to him to stay away.
And James is the one who called.
No, ma'am.
Who called this morning? Rick. Okay. Do you know
Rick
Rick's
is
last
the one
name?
who stays there.
Okay.
No, ma'am, but Rick is the one who stays there. James is a friend of everybody's, but
So
he
I
was
should
staying
be
up
able
there
to
with
find them
Dusty.
by his name.
According to Jamie, a man named Dusty McDonald had attacked another man, Rick, with a hatchet earlier that day. Police were called but were unable to locate or confront Dusty at the time. While this incident was concerning, it wasn't enough on its own to establish Dusty as a primary suspect. Until nearly every witness interviewed pointed to him as well. Eventually, officers had gathered enough statements to justify bringing Dusty in for questioning. All they needed now was to find him. As police began searching for Dusty, other officers on scene would sit down with the two 911 callers to piece together a timeline. According to them, the day had started with unsettling signs that something was off.
We both went down. We live right here. We want to go check on our family. He's wrapped up in a tarp.
Okay. Sir,
Came back
I
and
heard
called.
arguing earlier, right?
We know who was down there, sir.
Arguing. Okay. So I walked down through the woods. I seen Dusty have James on the ground. He was saying, you shouldn't talk shit about this, that. You know what I'm saying? I heard, like, oh, they just getting shit out, you know what I mean? But I never hear nothing from over there no more. I'm like,
You know Dusty's real name or?
Dusty McDonald.
Did you say that James called them today and said, hey?
No, Rick.
Oh, Rick called.
Rick.
Said,
James was there.
Dusty went over there and cut his tent with
cut him up,
machete?
threatened with a machete,
Yeah.
cut his tent up, all kind of shit.
They called the police. I was there
Yep,
for that.
called the police, made a report, and the police just said, stay away from him. There's a tarp laying beside a tree that's never there, because I live here, and I took the stick and went. When I flipped it up, I seen legs.
Based on these witness accounts, officers now have a fairly detailed picture of what likely unfolded just hours earlier. They also have a lead suspect, Dusty McDonald, a name one of the officers happened to be familiar with.
I think they already brought up his name, Dustin McCormick.
Yeah, Dusty.
Dusty, supposedly general in some militia, come down there this morning with a machete and started hacking up some of the tents because he wanted to clear the area. Said he's signal 20 and off his meds.
They said Dusty. They said Dusty's the one that's outstanding. Yeah, they said this guy Dusty left from over here like later in the evening.
By now, it was clear Dusty had likely been involved in the murder, and with Jamie and Robert's statements in hand, police began piecing together the sequence of events leading up to the brutal killing. Earlier that day, Rick, another man who lived at the camps, had called 911 claiming a Dusty McDonald had slashed his tent with a machete while searching for a man named James, even threatening him in the process. Later that afternoon, Dusty managed to find James, and witnesses reported hearing arguing from the camp. When they checked to see what was going on, they saw Dusty on top of James, wrestling and yelling. It didn't appear to be anything more than a heated argument, so they returned to their camp. However, hours would pass, and nobody had heard from James. Robert and Jamie began to worry and decided to go looking for him, and that's when they found a blue tarp covering James's lifeless body. Nearly all witness accounts lined up perfectly with this timeline of events, making the next step for officers clear: arrest Dusty and bring him in for interrogation. Fortunately, since officers had begun the work of locating him earlier that day, they already had Dusty's address. Soon after, they surrounded the house, ready to move in.
Sheriff Office, put a knife down, man. Come on out. Come on out. Come on out.
I don't have anything in my
Okay,
hands.
come on.
Please, I don't
Come on.
have anything in my hands.
Come on out.
I'm right here, sir.
Come on out. Dude, I'm right here.
Dusty?
Okay. Dude, yeah.
Turn around, put your hands behind your back.
Dude, the man just tried to light me on fire, dude. Y'all know what happened down there. That man tried to light me on fire, man. It's all on surveillance, dude.
Listen, Dusty, you try to do things stupid. The dog's gonna bite you, you understand?
No, I'm not even on him, dude. Look at there. I'm not hurt at all, sir. Sir, man just left my house and tried to murder me down there and light me on fire.
Dusty's behavior would be bizarre from the start, immediately insisting that James tried to set him on fire and that the officers, quote, already know what happened down there. Whether he's trying to claim self-defense or is just completely unhinged is anyone's guess.
Sorry, what this with me? Yeah, dude, sir, you know what happened down there. That's what we're trying to figure out. Dude, man tried to light me on fire.
This is a custom sticker, and this is a custom label. Both are printed on vinyl and have a matte finish, and both can be printed and cut to any shape.
All right, okay.
Okay, listen.
Okay.
We've got one side.
Right.
That's why you need to come with us. Okay? I know you are.
With the supposed killer in custody, officers concluded the disturbing on-scene investigation and began preparing for interrogation. If Dusty was their killer, given what had been done to the victim's body, it pointed to someone deeply disturbed. That suspicion would soon be confirmed. By now, Dusty had already raised serious concerns. He had slashed Rick's tent and threatened him. On top of that, multiple witnesses had just reported seeing him argue with James hours before the murder. However, despite how clear things seemed, there was one major complication. Dusty was claiming self-defense. He alleged that James had thrown gasoline on him and threatened to set him on fire. This wasn't a claim detectives could easily dismiss, especially given the distinct smell of gasoline at the scene, meaning there was a possibility he could get away with his crime. Even though it's clear who's behind the murder at this point, Dusty's story now carries a shred of credibility. Detectives have one goal: to break that story, either by disproving his self-defense claim using witness statements, or, ideally, by getting a confession. Either way, the investigation is about to get a lot more complicated. To move forward, detectives start by bringing in people from the encampment who knew Dusty well and interacted with him regularly. If Dusty had a pattern of violent behavior, these individuals were the most likely to have seen it firsthand.
My goal here is to kind of get, from your perspective, kind of what you saw, what you heard.
He ain't really been fucking with me at all. I ain't never had no crosswords. He's always insistent, oh, come up there and do your laundry and all that shit, you know. Come up there and get a shower. That's what it was. Come and get a shower. Come get a shower all the time. So I fucked up. You got a shower and get him $2 afterwards, you know, just a gesture.
Rick explains that Dusty often offered showers and laundry to homeless individuals in the area, sometimes charging a small fee. This catches the attention of detectives. These seemingly generous acts may be a part of a larger pattern of manipulation, a way for Dusty to assert control over the homeless community. It's a detail that could support their efforts to build a stronger case against him.
I tried my best to get along with him. You know, he had a shower that we all used, you know, sometimes try to keep him good with him for those reasons and stuff, you know.
Yeah, I get that.
Never, my wildest dreams that I think he was capable of murder, and that's honest truth. I was just over there basically using his necessities like we all were. We got a chance to, you know, shower, usually offered it. That's his way of making friends with us, I think. I had stayed with him before, and he kicked me out. I thought I was in a night, I was taking pictures of him and stuff like that with my phone, and I didn't have a phone. Like, I saw you taking pictures of me with your phone. I still didn't have a phone. He said, you gotta go. I left. That.
Dusty lives in a house near the homeless camps, a property owned by his grandfather. At first, much like Rick, Busby describes Dusty as someone who seems generous, allowing members of the homeless camp to use his home for basic amenities. As investigators continue interviewing members of the homeless community, a more troubling picture of Dusty begins to emerge. He has a history of strange and violent behavior marked by paranoia and delusions. However, officers face a challenge. The interviews so far have been too vague. highlighting patterns of behavior but lacking concrete details to build a solid case. This leads detectives back to Jamie, the original 911 caller and the person with the clearest recollection of events so far. And he's able to offer meaningful insight into who Dusty really is.
Mr. Allen, my role here in all this, it's just kind of to get from your perspective, your side of things, what you saw, what you observed.
Man came to my camp last night. I used to stay up there with him. He's a violent person.
Okay.
His papa is the one that let me stay there because he's the one that owns the property. The reason I don't stay there is because you don't do what he says, then he gets all angry and threatens you, and he just crazy shit. I said, well,
What does he usually carry?
he ain't got a stick this time. But he's either got a stick, a machete, or not. He carries like 3 or 4 knives on him. Machete, sticks, he's like, he thinks he's Rambo.
While Dusty had a reputation as a bully who routinely harassed the homeless community, no one expected his behavior to escalate to cold-blooded murder. His so-called generosity, offering his home for showers and laundry, masked a deeper need for control and manipulation. The same people he claimed to help were also the ones he intimidated and threatened, revealing a warped sense of power and superiority. In the end, this contradiction may have set the stage for the gruesome murder. When Dusty was brought in for questioning, his demeanor was strangely calm. At this point, he seems to believe that he is seen as a victim of an attack by this homeless man. He didn't seem like he was in his right mind at all. Detectives were hoping to learn about Dusty's side of the story, but instead were met with, well, a lot of nonsense.
You know I'm an owl, right?
You're what?
You know I'm an owl, right?
Okay.
You know what that means, right?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. This has been a really hard day. Sir, I waved all right there a long time ago.
Younghae loves calligraphy, and she loves helping others love it too. So she built a course on Kajabi that turned her passion into a business. That flowed into a community where students sketch their progress, take on challenges, and
I still have a great sense of innocence within me. If it ain't obvious to you this time.
Throughout his interrogation, Dusty's responses are filled with incoherent delusions and deflections. In Dusty's mind, he's, quote, an owl, constantly watched, monitored, and under surveillance. It's clear that without his medication, his schizophrenia is spiraling out of control.
I'm handling it remarkably well. Because Jesus, man, that was some crazy shit. And still be able to get us usable intel. You don't get why staying at that place is so dangerous for me. I know a lot of trust is getting to me like that, but man, thank you for saying you did talk about this.
Dusty seems to believe he's outsmarted the cops, thinking he's there to provide valuable intel as the victim. But he will soon find out that he's actually a suspect in the cold-blooded murder of an innocent man.
I haven't shed a tear all day, I've been going hard, I'm so exhausted. How long have you been doing it? What, this kind of work? Not very long. That was my first. I think everybody knows that. From the get-go. Thank you for this deep psychological kind of it's helping a lot. Good.
Listening closely to Dusty's words, it seems as if he's openly admitting to the murder. Although his statement is scattered and unclear, it gives detectives the impression that he's acknowledging responsibility without fully grasping the seriousness of his actions. But Dusty's bizarre admissions wouldn't stop there, as he continues rambling incoherently.
I was rushing and then he tried to get us to know me because you saw how I was pulled up that time. Dude, I thought I was just doing it for the other. You know what I mean? Yeah, that was my intention. Everyone knew that. I didn't manage to hit that Neo-UI come out like that. I don't know how I do it. You know what I mean? My house blades like before back when I took the knife and do a new curve.
While Dusty's ramblings could be interpreted as an admission that James was his first murder, the statement is buried in a mix of delusions about retinoids, his photographic memory, and other incoherent claims. The detective picks up on this and pushes further, trying to separate fact from fiction in Dusty's fractured account.
For me to verify everything that I can see elsewhere, I know you're not mad at me. That's just, I don't want you to think I'm asking questions. There's like my personality is, I can't talk to it. I know, but I don't want you to think I'm being certain that I am very that we're at this conference.
Dusty claims he's not mad and that people don't understand how he communicates. This shows he might have a twisted view of himself, possibly because of paranoia, delusions, or mental illness. What's strange is how calm and relieved Dusty seems. Most guilty people would be nervous or scared during an interrogation, but Dusty is different. He seems to still believe he's the victim and doesn't grasp the seriousness of his actions. Instead of taking responsibility, he thinks people just don't understand him. This becomes even clearer when Dusty asks one final question to the detective.
Will I be able to go home? I'm gonna figure that out. Yeah, because that's either am I going to jail or we're going down to dance. We're gonna have to figure that kind of out. How this thing kind of goes from here. I guess. I'm gonna come talk to you about it. Just look at panicky.
After this bizarre exchange, the detective had heard enough to know it was time to wrap up the interrogation. Dusty's lack of remorse and distorted grip on reality made it clear they were dealing with someone who didn't fully understand the weight of his actions. According to the pathology report, the victim, James Ledendecker, was subjected to horrific torture before his death. His body showed severe blunt force trauma, including cuts, bruises, and fractures to his face, nose, ears, and mouth. His eyes had severe bleeding, and many of his teeth were broken. The injuries also extended to his neck, with heavy bleeding in the muscles and a broken hyoid bone, suggesting he had been strangled. His torso displayed several broken ribs, and internal bleeding was found in his chest and abdomen. One of the most disturbing details from the report was that James had been exposed to gasoline. His skin had begun to slough off in areas, and a strong smell of gasoline was found on his arms, thighs, and hands. Gasoline was also detected in his lungs and stomach, indicating he had inhaled and swallowed it before he died. This made the murder even more gruesome. Dusty was processed for forensic evidence and transported to the Leon County Detention Facility. The witness statements, his vague confession, and the forensic evidence from the scene were enough to formally charge him. Dusty McDonald was charged with 1 count of first-degree murder, and as of this video's upload, his case remains ongoing.
Can you leave my stuff? I'm cleaning. come. You like it? Giving the gummy some ham. So the place is a little bit cleaner. Took that huge pile of sweaters. I got too many sweaters on that rack. Like maybe I'll sell some sweaters. We'll see. I was thinking about playing some League of Legends. Take a picture of Gummy Boo Boo. someone on Fur Affinity was sending me inappropriate links to 4chan. was shot the same day this guy was given a sentencing date, and I am supposed to be a witness. This is the second time he's tried to kill my cat. The police came over and gave me a subpoena to a witness. Yeah, because I got him charged for stalking and attempted murder on his ex-girlfriend. I don't think he's involved with the people who robbed my apartment, but he definitely didn't help me out of there. Because I had to go back. I'm gonna sip on a Red Bull, maybe that'll make me feel better. he was shot on the same day this guy had court and had sentencing. The sentencing is in August, or October, and I have a subpoena to be a witness. I just thought I would show you the paperwork that proves that my cat was shot on the exact same day that he had a date to be a witness. Sentencing. I could be in danger from any time between now and his next sentencing when I take the stand against him. It was in the afternoon, and it makes me wonder if he did it before or after he went to court. Are you in that group on Telegram? I'm posting this Beware on Chapel. It just details about how she's trying to sell a fursuit for a $1,500 markup after she got it, and she used a story part of it to argue that it was fabricated. Like, she's trying to sell a fursuit she just got, and I confronted her about it. The suit I got was completely ruined. I've seen the pictures you sent me. That's not true. She also said it has a lifetime warranty and she'll pay you for shipping if you send it back to her. All I asked for a refund is because my dad helped me pay for her, but it got her all ruined. You can't get a refund on a completed product. She didn't help her dad. She's using disability. Anyways, there's like random bits of hot glue and stuff she puts on there. She apparently puts pins in costumes too. She wore down the fur a little bit here. Barely noticeable at all. That's not ruined. It's like, honestly, barely noticeable. For real right now, you come to my house and you're gonna say that I'm dramatic? Doesn't matter that I've been to your house. Why are you using another maker when you have a lifetime warranty with Nova? I gave the suit for use for their own work. I saw you trying to sell that fursuit immediately after getting it for $1,000 more than you paid. It was actually $1,500 more than they paid. It wasn't even including the character rights. I think you're a little delusional. Oh, I didn't sell her though. I didn't want to give the rights away. But you tried. You tried to profit off somebody else's work. After this, I started deleting some of my comments because they started being really rude. I said something along the lines of, I don't even think your dad's in the picture anymore. I don't even think your dad's ever known you. And is this proof? Leave me alone. You're a horrible person, Becca. Yeah, and you don't know how to shut your mouth. And then I ended up going on about how I wish my dad was dead and stuff like that. Laugh. It wasn't ruined. I just want everyone to stop. I posted proof. Nobody asked. I'm sure his picture's shared around for all the furries to see. Look, Nova's come back in to post more Bewares against Chapel. You guys are just horrible people. She didn't have any fursuits when I visited her, so I think any fursuit, even a broken one, wouldn't be sold. You're not allowed near me again. Hey, I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm talking about you. Or my house. Your cops will be called. Oh yeah, I didn't even plan to go back there after I left. I could smell a million red flags on you. Also, I think you're a minor. I'm 21, what the fuck? Let's not make up claims. That's fucking insane. I'm honestly done. Just a warning to anyone. Go have a drink of water, clear the salt from your mouth, refresh and requench. I'm not a bad person, guys. I'm truly not. Sorry, guys. I'm just autistic. I really hate liars because people could really take advantage of me. I'm really gullible and it gets me really triggered. I'm not a liar. I'm apologizing to other people, not you. I'm sorry, because in the end, I ended up embarrassing myself as well. I started being really fucking rude. I had to start deleting comments because I was like, your dad doesn't even know you. Okay, I'm gonna give you a screenshot in a second, but here's a video. Because I deleted some of the comments. have any fursuits when they visited her. So I think any fursuit, even a broken one, wouldn't be sold. You're not allowed near me again. Hey, I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm talking about you. Or my house. Your cops will be called. Oh yeah, I didn't even plan to go back there after I left. I could smell a million red flags on you. Also, I think you're a minor. I'm 21. What the fuck? Does not make up claims. That's fucking insane. I'm honestly done. Just a warning to anyone. Go have a drink of water, clear the salt from your mouth, refresh and requench. I'm not a bad person, guys. I'm truly not. Sorry, guys. I'm just autistic. I really hate liars because people can really take advantage of me. I'm really gullible and it gets me really triggered. I'm not a liar. I'm apologizing to other people on you. I'm sorry, because in the end I ended up embarrassing myself as well. I started being really fucking rude. I had to start deleting comments because I was like, your dad doesn't even know you. Did I tell you somebody shot my cat? I had to put him into emergency surgery, but he's doing okay.
Who's that? Hi.
I'm Timo. 2, 3, 4. The old voice actor, not the new one.
Kitty. I forget.
Me too.
I forget plain whether or not where we know you from.
I may have played before. I don't know why.
Well, you definitely played before if you have the link. So,
yeah.
I think it was the other day that do we remember when we joined that group that there's multiple people that joined the Discord that day.
Possibly. I have brain damage. My memory's very bad.
Oh.
Sorry. I haven't played League of Legends for a couple months.
It's been about a couple months since that happened.
Okay. Then possibly.
Welcome.
Thank you. How's your game? What are you guys playing today?
We're playing our normal Friday. We play every Friday. And we just have over the years we've slowly collected new members for the Friday games, and it's just kind of whoever's around on Friday. You know, if we can start every day or Friday at 3 to 6 roughly.
Do you play normals?
Yeah, we just play ARAMs.
ARAMs. I like ARAMs.
Yeah.
No stress. No one really minds one with the other. Just for fun, yeah.
There's no raging allowed.
Except this Rexalis guy, you know, we kind of mute him.
I'm the only one who's allowed to be toxic. No, I'm just kidding. We also have bolted for that.
Oh, I come in here sounding young, but I'm actually not young. I'm 31.
But that's still young, sorry.
You're still pretty young.
Okay. I come in here being Timo in that, but I'm
37.
Okay.
And Maria and Bjorn are older than me.
People just often think I'm a child. Alright, well, I guess I should figure y'all playing League of Legends, you're not gonna be young.
I don't know. I didn't start until season, I don't remember. I started in 2015, so I guess it's been a while now. Damn.
Yeah, I think I started in 2015 as well, but I didn't get any better.
Join the club.
Yeah.
Yeah. we have everything from iron ranking to well, I don't know. Who's the highest he played with? Diamond, Emerald?
Becky?
I've played with Platinum. I got
He's
Platinum.
played Masters.
Yeah, he's played Masters. We kind of we have both
usually
classes.
iron to silver, some gold.
Yeah, but there's a couple of gold and above. What are you playing, Frosty? Yeah. Wood. We take those.
I had headphones. I'm looking for them now. I must have lost.
So are you a Timo main since you mentioned Timo, or you just do the voice?
Yeah, I've had to bully myself into playing other champions.
Yeah,
though.
I always claim him, so sorry.
Yeah, I know. I bullied myself into playing other champs though.
Actually, we all fight over them, and we have a deal that if you have them, you have no obligation to give them up.
No obligation to give him up. Although I often give him to Maria.
Yes, he does.
Those days are gone now, aren't they?
He's a good friend.
You guys are in luck because I don't like playing Timo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you're here.
Just so you can take him.
Oh, I'll go in.
All good. There's some karma shots going through here.
Where are you guys from?
Oh, that's a trick question.
All
from Georgia.
All over the place.
Which state are you in?
I'm in
Southeast
Canada.
mainland. Canada.
In Canada. Which province? Which province?
New Brunswick.
Ooh, the cool end of town.
Yes.
I don't know anything about Canada.
My son went
next
to
to me.
PEI.
Just north of New York.
Yeah. My son went to Prince Edward Island University, whatever it's called up there, PEI. So Marie and I live in South Carolina.
Nice. It's telling me I need to restart my PC to play Open League, so I'll be right back.